1943 during a very bad famine, so I am told. I was lucky. My parents were educated people, both of them. My mother was a midwife who had trained in Pongani here in the very early years, and then she also worked at King George, that's now Kenyatta, for a long time. She was a midwife. My father was a teacher and a headmaster of a school where I was born, and a very forward-looking man. Basically, that's the kind of family I came from. Everybody else in my family was also a professional. A neurosurgeon, my elder brother was a neurosurgeon, one of the first ones trained, and then he went to the other side. My sisters worked also in professions. My father boasted that he was about the only person who had 5 children in alliance in those days. So that's the kind of family I came from. And that would speak a lot as to what my achievements then became. I think that's basically that's why I'm talking about that background. Yeah. I went to my local school where I was born. Then I went to Butere High School. Butere had only taken in one other stream of what we call secondary high school. There was only one stream ahead of us, one lot of people ahead of us. So when we did our CAPE, which was in those days 8 years, you did up to standard 4, then you did an exam. They used to call it common entrance, and then after that you went on for another 4 years and you did standard 8, and that wasn't as it is these days, not the Matiani kind of thing. It was a little bit complicated than it is now. So after my CAPE, I went to Butere. We could not, the only other high school was Alliance, but then they had to begin Butere on the other side. So we were told nobody's going to Alliance, nobody's going to Limuru, all of you from that side are going to Butere. So that's how it all happened. I went to Butere. I did my 4 years with some very prominent women. Julia Jambo was my teacher at some point. In my own class, I cannot remember my own class. It was people like Mary Okello, Professor Nora Orembo, Professor Karani. Those are the kind of people that we were in that class. We were not very many. They were very, at the beginning of everything, there weren't that many women all over the place. It was difficult. So ahead of me were people like Dr. Miriam Were. Who else was in that class of Miriam Were? But women who have done things, and I'm always proud to say this, women who have achieved. The class I was in, women achieved. So from there, when we finished Butere High School, they had then stopped people going to Makerere to do that intermediary course of 2 years, which was actually meant by the colonialists just to cut down numbers of who was supposed to move on and go and do degree work. So then that was the beginning of A-levels. We were the first lot to do A-levels. And Alliance Girls was the only place that was offering A-levels. So we went to Alliance, and a very staunch Scots woman called Bruce, who was the headmistress, came to Dr. Butere herself to come and interview us. And she decided she would take 7, only 7 of us, and take 6 of her own girls from Alliance. Her view was that she wanted that we from the other side, maybe we were a better group of people. If we could make it where we were, we must have had some brain. That's the way she looked at it. So we went to Alliance. We began the first class of A-levels. We were 13. That's what we were. 6 from Alliance and 7 from Butere. We did our 2 years and we finished. Most of us passed, actually. In fact, a whole lot of us passed. Then, of course, problems came. The issue of career. In those days, when you qualified as a woman, you went to be a nurse. What else was there for us? A teacher. And secretarial work was just coming in. But for a parent who has raised their child in a Christian way and from the countryside away from Nairobi, it wasn't easy to release your daughter to come to Nairobi and do secretarial. But then the African women were now required for parliamentary, doing all the other secretarial work. So a few of us, I think maybe 3 or 4 of us, some of them found the place in parliament, and then 1 or 2 found the places in other important places like the president's office and things like that. We had a bit of a problem. I knew I was not meant to be a nurse, or I couldn't do medicine because in the Butere we were not doing sciences, we only did arts. Apart from me, Dr. Were, who then went to the States and had received her whole thing, or Professor Olembo, who had to go to England and receive everything to take sciences. I wasn't a science material, and I knew I couldn't do it. So all along, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. As to what that meant at the beginning, I'm not quite sure. A lawyer only meant for me going into court, carrying books, and arguing my cases, or being a judge. That's the only thing to know. That's what law meant for me. So, with my father behind me, and my father was convinced I had to be a lawyer at whatever cost. She told me, you can make it. We don't know how you're going to do it, but you'll do it. So when we are in alliance, Dar es Salaam had now been set up as the university for law. If you wanted to do medicine, you went to Makerere. If you wanted to do engineering and other technical subjects, you came to Nairobi. But if you wanted to do law, you went to Dar es Salaam. Because it was East Africa University. So the issue was, how do I get to Dar es Salaam? Once or twice, there was a man called Professor Makosline who was going to come across the other school, the other alliance, to tell them about careers and what have you, and how you could get yourself in Dar es Salaam to do law. Bruce said, you are not going to see that man. Told him, you are not going to see the man. And we were only 2 of us, myself and Nelly Okwiri, who were interested in law. She said, none of you are going. So my father was here, and he heard that I wasn't able to go and see Makosline, Professor Makosline. So what did he do? He then took one of his powerful friends, of course, the old man Muriro, and said, let us drive me to Alliance. So they drove to Alliance, and since we had a day off to be out of school, my father picked me up, brought me into town, took me to Muriro's office, to Mzee Muriro's house. I met Professor Makosline, and he told me all about it. So at least I avoided annoying Bruce. Because according to Mrs. Bruce, law was a devilish profession. A woman, a decent woman from Alliance, could not get involved in things like that. So there I am, torn between my father, who says you must be a lawyer, and my old teacher, and the one who was my mentor, saying you're not going to do that course. Eventually we passed. We did the exam, we passed, and I joined Dar es Salaam University with a Mrs. Okwiri, Nelly Okwiri, who died some 2 years ago. But she was in the Foreign Office, and then from Foreign Office she came here, and for a long time she was in the Lands Office as a registrar of lands here. Then after that she took her own, she went and set up her own farm, and she died about 2 or 3 years ago. In fact, she had a boy. her son, Okello, also was a lawyer, but he died also. 1 or 2 years ago also. So we did our 4 years in that slum. Who are my classmates in that slum? Justice Kwaj, Justice Mutungi, Professor Mutungi, Mukele, Mr. Mukele, who was with the
IBC.
Yeah. Who else was in that class? There's a man called Lindio. Yeah. Then there was who else was in that class? Otieno Masime, some classmate also, and a few others. We were quite a group, very, very serious people. Ahead of us, a year ahead of us, was people like Kaminwa, Kivuitu, who else was in that class? I can't remember, but they were not very many. So that was the class that was not in.
Which year was this?
63. I finished 63 in Alliance. I went 64 to 67. I qualified in 67 from the slum. So the other group they were a year ahead of us. The Kivuitu, Haminwa. There were then, the group behind me was Wako, what's in that class? Can't quite remember. Jobs. The government was then just waiting for us to finish and come and take one of our jobs. There was no question about looking for a job. We didn't have to go to Kenya School of Law. There wasn't even time for that. We came and we began our training on jobs. I went to Attorney General's office and I was heading Mr. Kawa, who was the registrar, had just left. No, he was still in. So I went off and I began doing work of the Registrar General. I was in Mombasa for some time, doing everything. I went to the Registrar General, marrying, doing marriages, birth registrations, all that work in the registrar. I was in Mombasa for some time. And then I began getting a little bit, when I was doing the registrar of marriages in Mombasa and marrying women off, I began getting interested in women. What was going on with women, mainly, I don't want to start that. These girls, I would see one today marrying a sailor. 2 weeks after that, or 1 month after that, I see her again marrying another sailor. Some say, look, Jerry, or you. I mean, did I see you 2 or 3 weeks ago? Yes, Mama, yes, you did, Jake. Then what has happened? Why did you come back again? See, Alienda. So that's when I began saying there's something that is not right in the way we're registering marriages and what have you, and issuing certificates. What would happen sometimes, we didn't even issue a certificate on the spot, so they would slip out. They have now brought somebody. They're saying they're married. No, there wasn't even proper notice as to what time should expire before you could get married again. They used to say what the special license. Go and buy a special license and come back, and then I would marry you again. And at that time, I would not even ask you. I wouldn't even have the time to ask you, what about the last marriage that you were in? Have you gotten yourself divorced? So that aspect of it began bothering me a little bit. So I finished my stint in the registrar of Registrar General's office, where I did everything, trademarks, bankruptcies, what have you. Then I joined the Attorney General's prosecution office, the Attorney General proper. I did prosecution for some time, mainly murder cases, what have you. I didn't do the civil part of it, but I did the criminal part of it. And went with some very powerful people to court, to work with cases like the DPP who was, what was his name? Hobbes, who was a very, 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 very good, very good lawyer. And who else were we there with? There were quite a few people, state councils. Then a chance arose on the bench. Rather, I was actually asked, can you come? Are you interested in my kids doing your work? Can you come? I said, fine. 60, no. Which of my babies was alive? Okay, Claire. 72. That's how I have to remember these things. Yeah, that was in 1972. I went, I was interviewed, and I was given a job as a magistrate. By then there was only there were two other magistrates. There was Kamala Madan, her father was a prominent lawyer, and a woman called Mrs. Maina. Those two Indian ladies were the only magistrates. Maybe that's why the persuasion that can you come? Can you come and take on the job as a magistrate? So I came. And I was in that job, went through the ranks, senior magistrate, chief magistrate, up to when I was appointed a judge in 1980. You can verify some of these things from my... Yeah, 1981. Yeah. I refused to go and do criminal work. I decided I was going to do some civil work. You understand what I'm talking about? Because I'd been doing nothing but crime. I said, if I don't learn this work now, I'm not going to be able, after being here, to tell advocates that I can't do civil work because I've never done civil work. So I didn't do criminal work. I went on the civil bench. The work was challenging, okay. In those days, most of them were still white people and Indians. We weren't very many Africans, but we were coming up. The ones who had come in and gone, people like Aminwa had come in as a magistrate. He had then left to go onto the bench. People like Kivuito had come. They had left to go into the private sector. So we weren't that many African magistrates. What other problems were there? Just little teething problems. They had never had a woman on the bench. So there were issues. I didn't even have a toilet. So the first time I arrived, the other judges told the Chief Justice, no, I'm not going to share their toilet. That became a big issue. Because where was I going to go to the toilet? I wasn't going to get out of the building every time I wanted to use the room. Eventually, the Chief Justice himself gave up his toilet and said, look, to calm this war down, let her use my toilet. And here is the key. So this was the gender issues. They might not have been anything, but this was some of the attending gender issues that we had to deal with to begin with. Next, what are we going to call her? What are we going to call her? The other ones are Mr. Justice. At that time, we still had the word Mr. Justice, Honorable Mr. Justice, so and so. What? So I said, no, you can't call me Honorable Mrs. Justice. No, you can't do that. We have to find. We have to find a term. So the usual, they looked at the Commonwealth and what were they calling. That's when they came to the issue of Lady Justice. To differentiate me from all these men, and then that way, I was called lady, they were very happy about it. Said she's different and we must keep at this. So that got settled as to what we were going to call our lady judges. The issue of clothing was even an issue. I said no. If she doesn't wear trousers, then how can she come? She can't be a judge without wearing trousers. So I said, oh no, I'm not about to wear trousers. I'll have to wear a proper skirt and a proper suit, like all of you do. So these are some of the things that we take for granted, but they were quite issues. What do I dress like? What do I do like? And then going into this room where they are all male judges, cracking jokes. And I mean cracking jokes. I can crack jokes more than any of you women because of the kind of company that I was in. So they would be cracking jokes and say, oh, the air is not that clear because I happened. I said, okay, either you go on, but I'm not walking out. So say what you wanted to say, I'm going to sit here. So those were just some of the things that we had to go to keep at, and eventually they were ironed out. I stayed at the High Court for years, did my sting, headed the divisions, and then come 1998, I was appointed to the Court of Appeal. Also, there hadn't been a woman who had served on it, so I was appointed to the Court of Appeal as the first woman judge. And that's where sometimes one has to be, as a woman, one has to be a little bit more, one has to find a way of dealing with your own issues, which are not particularly male issues, which are basically gender issues. I had to worry about my children who were going to school. I was going to go on circuit now for the first time in my life. It meant I had to be away for 2 weeks. I had young children in school. I had to leave a household. I didn't have a spouse who could take on this. I had all the other stuff that people have to worry about, mortgages, what have you. So that got a little bit complicated, but somehow I just learned how to work my issues out. Took children, took them to schools where they could be picked for lunch. No, given lunch at school, like they used to be in St. Mary's and Msongari. I said, that can't work. So I took them. I said, okay, you have to go to Singa where you'll be given lunch. You'll be picked up in the morning, you'll go there, you'll be given lunch, you'll come back and find when my household is running and you have your dinner. If there was, I had now to get somebody to come in and do homework with them. In other words, my life had to continue whether I was out of this house or not, and I didn't want my children to be disadvantaged. Thank God they all were, they didn't get disadvantaged. They worked hard and they have managed to get on their own lives. A few of them are lawyers, a few of them are doctors, others are business people. They are managing their affairs out there. Yeah. One of them has just come back. She's a professor. She was a professor at Harvard and a doctor on the other side. She has just come back with her 2 kids because she wanted to come back home and be able to serve her country. Yeah, so that is a story of my life.
And what have been your achievements? Would you say have been your achievements in the women's movement, in the legislation?
Yeah.
Before we get
Married to Awuor. I was married to Awuor. First of all, okay. I first got married in 1967 to a Dr. Majisu. I was married to him until 1976. I did the unthinkable in those days. Women didn't divorce. You did not divorce. No. You stayed in marriage. You are Christian. Stayed in marriage. We couldn't get on, and we divorced peacefully. He was a scientist. He was heading the KARI, Kenya, first of all, East African Forestry and Research, whatever, at Muguga. Then he became KARI. He was heading KARI. I was driving from Muguga to work into town. At the same time having babies every other year and going back. I think the whole of that we couldn't, things happened and we couldn't. I've always believed that marriage is a very sacred relationship. People must be happy, and they must raise families happy. But when things are so bad, instead of killing each other, it's best to part and way. So we left each other, we went to court, and we divorced. It set off a big tribal problem. Said, how can a Luhya girl, proper Luhya girl, was going to Christian school, now divorce? This is terrible. And we both came from quite prominent families. That husband of mine, the first husband, the father Kenyatta had given him, he was a chairman of the Public Service Commission, and he himself was Dr. Majiso, he was a chairman of what, there are all sorts of things. But I walked out, and I said, you know what this is? When I walked out, I walked out 3 children, and it was all fine. Things settled. Then I got married to Mr. Awuor, George Awuor from Karachuonyo, and I'm from Kakamega. We lived, then George died in what year did George die? 1994. The laws, as far as they are concerned, their customs said to be obeyed, to complied with. And I agree with them, actually. I do agree with them. I honor people's customs. And I don't like going against people's customs if they make sense to me. So after we had buried my husband and we were now supposed to go off. No, during the burial. Anybody who stood to talk, and it was a big funeral. So anybody who stood to talk said, you know what, now Mama is here and she's got children and she's still young. Well, I wasn't young, but she's still young. And somebody has to, this is a very big family, look at the compound, it's a big place, somebody has to be able to help Mama. So the old men went and sat before we buried him, they went and sat in a corner and they decided on something, that they must get somebody who will look after the widow. Unfortunately, this was the time I was heading the Women's Task Force, which I'll have a lot to say afterwards. I was heading the Women's Task Force. I was going around the whole of this country. I was almost a household name at that time. I went everywhere trying to talk about women issues and women legal problems. So somehow Moi had heard that something like that was going on. So he sent a DC, one of his very famous DC called this Arata, told him, you got that funeral. I don't want to hear that rubbish. Now this thing was going internationally, and that we force our widows to marry when their husbands die. I don't want that. So Arata comes to me. He also sent Dalmas Otieno. He said, I don't want that rubbish. So they came. When there was this, now went on the side, a bit embarrassed not to tell me what was going on. I said, Mama, they are going there to arrange as to who can look after you. It's such a big thing. Who is able to look after you? So I laughed. I said, don't worry about it. Let them come. It's okay. Let them discuss. It's their custom. Let them discuss. So it is only when it was now said in the open. So I had to stand up and say something about it. I said, you know what? I really respect you. I respect the laws. I respect the way you worry about your widows. And you know that I've got a big family and I'm going to have to look after this family. But let us discuss this after the funeral. After the funeral, they came back again and they said they wanted to discuss it. I said, now, no. It was now a year afterwards during the memorial. I said, now I'm ready. I've now mourned my husband. Year is now over. Now I'm ready. I said, but I want to give you some conditions. as to the kind of person who can come and look after me and look after the children. I said to him, one, he should not be anybody's husband. He should not be somebody who has got another family, and he's coming and take on my big family. So I want a bachelor who is over 64 years old, because I'm not a young girl. Go and get me a bachelor who is over 64 years old, who has no other family, and I'll be willing to think about it. I knew those were impossible conditions. They were not going to alter it. But I was being serious. I wasn't going to let somebody else with a family come to me and then take on my big load of children and my responsibility at the expense of his family, which tends to happen up to now. Nor did I believe in the whole principle of being inherited or taken over by somebody else. I didn't believe in that. Mentally and what have you, I didn't believe in that. And not with my Christian background. So it became a big thing. It was all over, but it ended. When I told him 64 years old, when he comes, it's okay. We'll think about it.
He never came.
No. He never came. And by then things had changed. Yeah.
Okay, something on law, the task force.
Okay, the task force. Those two are my two books for the task force. Happening internationally, I'm sure you know. The UN had not picked up the issue of women's rights and what have you, and a lot was now happening. The world was becoming more and more awake of the fact that women are definitely not functioning at the same level as men, and gender issues were now coming to the forefront. So the Kenya government, and we were quite happy about that, after we had gone to Mexico, in 1975, women's conference. That was the first one in 1975. And we came out from North Mexico with all these reports. I went to Mexico during that time. We were not many. By virtue of the fact that I was a lawyer, and at that time I was still alone, and I had the opportunity, the privilege of actually being asked to do a lot more than maybe just an ordinary judge on the bench would have been able to. I went practically to each and everything that had women and legal issues. I was a bit rough occasionally, but it was okay. So we wrote the document, we wrote the paper that we read. We read in Mexico. I think I wrote that paper with myself and Terry Cantai. Mm-hmm. I don't know who else, which other woman were with Jenny Kiana, who was Maendeleo. I can't remember the others who went with me to Mexico. I can't remember. I don't remember. I don't know. But those are the few that I remember. We wrote that document, sat up throughout the night. There was no question about when you go to this delegation and you are carrying people like the sports people the other day who were, some of them had nothing to do. We were so few, you had to go and you had to work day and night. So we wrote the paper, we presented it, and we did a good job for Kenya. To a point where we actually then got Nairobi Looking Forward meeting. That was 1981. 85. We did so well in Mexico that we actually managed to get the conference here, the next conference for women. It is during that time that we were taking so much, the Kenyan women were so active. Maendeleo was active doing what it should do. The East African Women's League, a lot of other, girl guides. Women were actually working at what they were supposed to do, development, what have you. We were in water, we were practically doing everything else. So the Attorney General and the government said, you know what, we better look at the legal issues affecting women. If we are going to have to empower them and have women move, we have to look into the gender issues. And this task force was set up. If you look on the first page of the of the world, the acknowledgement, you will see the kind of women, if you can just read them out, the ones who signed the document. I'm very proud of them, that's why I'm very proud of my women. Yeah, just look at the members of the task force that was set up at that time.
Excuse me.
Justice Awuor as the chairperson, I was the chairperson of the whole, but then I was a judge of appeal and I chaired the task force. We're not talking about 1995, 1999. These things, the head is gone. Okay, I chaired the task force. And then Lady Justice Joyce Awuor, she was with the High Court. She was my vice. And then Honorable Kitony Maendeleo, Chairman Maendeleo, Margaret Kenyatta, Commissioner at the Electoral Commission of Kenya, Ben Mukuria was an advocate and a very influential advocate in women issues, Mary Akello, she was the director of Makini, Surinda Kapila, a lawyer from USID, you can take it later. Margaret Mwangola was a director of Water for Health Organization. Professor Muhammad Abdulaziz, University of Nairobi, Department of Linguistics. Mary Kiptanui, specialist cultural education, and she was in Teacher Service Commission. Professor Orembo, she was director of Industrial Property Office. Manguyu, Dr. Florence Manguyu, consultant pediatrician. Eda Kachukia, former executive FAWE and director of Riara. Sipora Wandera was the town clerk, Nairobi City Council. Lilian Mwaura, advocate and former chair of the National Council of Women of Kenya. Margaret Nzioka, who is the chief parliamentary counsel, Attorney General's office. Dr. Shemina Lelani, a veterinary surgeon. Dr. Shanyisa Hasiani, lecturer at the University of Nairobi and formerly director of Institute of Population Studies. Mrs. Asha Haji, lecturer at Nairobi, Department of Sociology. Honorable Her Excellency Pamela Mboya, ambassador of the Kenya Mission of Habitat. And then Ruth Oeri was the Commissioner of Social Services, and Ambwere, head of Women Bureau, Ministry of Home Affairs. Wilikista Osando, formerly national chairman of National Maendeleo Wanawake. Terry Kantai, consultant, gender and development. Francisca Otete, formerly deputy chairperson, Public Service Commission. Mary Makofu, Kotu. Dr. Naomi Kipuri, social anthropologist, University of Nairobi. Mr. Gad Owando, State Counsel, Attorney General's Office, and Roslyn Langat Korir, Senior State Counsel. This is now, Gad is with the City Council now, with the county, and Roslyn is a judge. That is the kind of group who did this work on this task force. Okay. But having said that, I just want to show how important this task force was, and because it's the basis of almost everything we managed to obtain for the new constitution. Issues that had been raised were raised properly before the Constitutional Commission, and quite a lot of what has gone in came from this task force. And this task force went around the whole of Kenya. By then the provincial administration was still such an important aspect of our lives that when you left to go to Nairobi, you found when the PC himself has rounded up with the whole province. This issue of participation, the Mwananchi participating in the affairs of in the legislative issues and democracy was very strong in those days, particularly for this particular task force. The president had said women must be heard. Everybody must be heard. And we went practically the whole of Kenya and got views from everybody. So what was included here, and which eventually formed what went into the constitution, which is the basis of our gender issues and what have you, came from this thing. Even the researchers, I wanted that list of researchers. I wanted the list of researchers because then you can see the kind of people that I am talking about, the people who actually did the work. The task force is indebted to a team of consultants who have over the years made cumulative contributions to this report. These include Professor J.B. Ojwang, who was the team leader, is now Court of Appeal judge, Dr. Alois Ayako, is he still lecturing in the university? Very powerful economist. Okay. Mrs. Dorothy Ayako Munyako, she was with the Nation, and she was dealing. Dr. Mauri Yambo, Mrs. Patricia Kameri Mbote, Dr. Janet Kababeri Masharia, Ms. Saida Karimbax, Dr. Wanjiku Mukavi Kabira, that's one I'm sure you know, Dr. Peter Wanyande, Dr. Shalina and Rose Waruhiu, Dr. Mkoa Anangwe, currently Cabinet Minister, Mr. Khalifa, no, I think it's Dr. Poli Kapomoro now, Chief. I think so. Dr. Kamarogo, Jacqueline Athiambo Oduo, and Ms. Victoria Katambo. Those were some of the things they did. And these people worked. We worked on this in this task force. We worked, and I was a very proud woman when eventually we wrote the report and presented it to the president. We had made a lot of recommendations as to what laws we thought either should be amended, repealed, thrown out forever, and other new fresh laws put in place. Because that was our terms of reference. Our terms of reference were that we should look at from the whole aspect of the Kenyan society in response to laws that governed them. Those were the reviewing all existing laws, regulations, practices, customs, and policies which have an effect or purpose of impairing or nullifying the recognition, enjoyment, or exercising by women irrespective of their marital status on a basis of equality of men and women, of human rights in civil, political, economic, social, cultural, and or any other field. And then we were supposed to make recommendations for that. And then we were also supposed to recommend a comprehensive bills which would meet these problems. And then, of course, make any other recommendations we were supposed to do. So that's what we tried to do in this.
So which bills would you say have come out of this?
Okay. The marriage bill. There had been a commission before with people like Phoebe CEO and other people sat on, and that commission came out with a report and a bill. That report and the bill never saw the day. They never saw. It didn't go anywhere. Okay, it didn't go anywhere. It didn't. Nothing happened. But Tanzania took exactly the same bill, and they had legislated within space of 1 year, and they had a marriage bill before we did. So what did we do? We recommended and put up a marriage bill, which is exactly the marriage bill we have now. We had put up a married women property bill, which also has now become law. We also had what we called domestic, we also had recommended the setting up of the National Council for Gender Development, came out with a bill. Of course, you know what the position is now. That was set up through there. What else did we do? And then there was also the domestic violence bill. We were calling it family protection. Yeah, that was also came out of here. What else did we do? Domestic bill, domestic violence, family protection bill. What else had we recommended?
What about the children's
Act?
That one was another story. That's another commission that I worked on, and I was a very proud woman at the end of it. That one, have we finished that? Have we finished the women's one, or you want still to say a little bit more?
Did you say something about succession?
We did. We said something about succession, and which led into amendment of the Succession Act. Okay. Basically, what we were fighting at that time was the issue of inheritance, and what we came out with led to into amendment of the old Succession Act, and also plus the family bill, as we came out with it. That also formed a basis for amendment of the Succession Act. When we began, a woman, you could get a passport on your own. You had to go and bring your husband to get that passport, to sign for you to get a passport. You could not, it wasn't in law that you can't own property as a married woman. It wasn't in law that you couldn't own property. But the traditions and the practices that came with it could not just allow you as a married woman to walk out and go and have registered in your name. No, what is my husband going to say? So you register. Most women would even actually work, take the money, buy property, but you put it in their husband's names. And by the time they are coming and they are crying, Judge, this has happened. I said, what did you do? No, I didn't know that I could own property in my own right. So I gave it to my husband. I put it in my husband's name. Of course, it's either taken off, or there is a divorce now, or another woman is in, or they have been thrown out. There were multitudes and multitudes of problems with the law as it stood then. So by the time you're telling them that you could have owned property in your own right, said, but you would have killed me. I specifically remember a case which we did. I won't mention the names, but in that case, we were in the Court of Appeal, and a judge of the High Court had thrown out a woman from her house in South B because she had another issue now. This issue of age had now come in. The husband had now said that this woman was suffering from age. She must have been unfaithful, so she cannot live in the house with himself and his children. So this woman came to court and said, I'm a banker. I've taken a loan. And I'm the one paying the mortgage in this house where I've been thrown out by my husband. He has locked the children in the main house. He has asked me to go and stay in the servants' quarters. So we asked her, so who is paying the mortgage? She said, I'm still paying the mortgage because the mortgage, I'm the banker. I'm the one who has been given the mortgage. So when that matter came to Court of Appeal, we were also, now sitting on the Court of Appeal, and I was now putting the fire behind the scenes. I said, do you see this kind of thing? This is what I keep on telling you about. So as soon as that woman the man came into court, Justice Quach, maybe this you should not mention Justice Quach took on that man. He happened to have been a Luo man. He didn't know whether you were speaking to him in Luo or in English or whatever the language is. He said, who are you? Who pays the mortgage in the house? My wife. So what have you done? She has got AIDS. I can't let her live with the children in the same building. So Quack said, what about you? He said, I don't have AIDS. I showed the judge my certificate. Of course, the man had gone somewhere in Australia, in River Road or whatever it is, and got a certificate to say that he was negative. So it's the wife. And the wife kept on saying, Judge, I don't know any other man unless I got it through blood. And in those days, AIDS was a big thing. It wasn't as easy as it is now. So we said, Wife said, we stop now, go to Camry, get me a certificate, and come back. Not that you have any right to throw out your wife, simply because, she has AIDS. He went, of course he came up with a certificate that said he had AIDS. Quack said, I'm giving you a social worker now with a policeman. You go back to South Beach. You pack your bags because it's easier for you to pack than for your wife to pack. Leave your address at the door, and I'm giving you 6 hours to get out of that house. Yeah, courts had now began getting very sensitive. These gender issues. And that's exactly what happened. Where a woman, and what had she done? This woman had put her name on that house simply because she had to get the mortgage. Otherwise, she would not have put her name on that house. Most women just bought and became. So what the matrimonial women's, what is it called? The Property Act has done is a big thing. It's a big, big thing. Then, of course, now there is a domestic violence. What is the act called?
Family protection.
Family protection. Whereby, in those days, what was the problem was this: most women would live in a house by virtue of their husband's employment as civil servants. You got a house, so a woman would live because the house belongs to the man. She would live there. The law didn't allow him to leave the house. It was you, the woman, to leave. I don't know, there wasn't a law against that, but that's the practice was that it would be the woman who would be carrying her children on her back and going to find a place where to live. And by the time she goes 1 whole year in the courts trying to get maintenance, she has nowhere to live. She's actually destitute with the children. The children have left school. If they were living in Credential, they are now living somewhere in Eastlands. The kids cannot go back she can't get big children back to Lavington School. The kids are going on the other side. And the man is quite comfortable, no problem. And then, of course, you couldn't take more than 1/3 of a man's salary as maintenance for the family. The problems were just too many. And these women were going through so many problems just to try and get maintenance and things like that. So we began fighting. As a recommendation in this, we must have a family court to be able to address these issues. The issues of succession, the issues of family. And that's how the setting up of the family court now came in. Otherwise, matrimonial issues, you went on the same line like the thief from Kawangware. You wait until the thief's case is finished, and then your case will come. If it was 6 months down the line and the family is completely damaged, that was no issue. So that's how the setting up of the family court came in. And we went flat out. Now women, feeder, everybody went flat out and made noise until the family court was set up. I remember even at the beginning, the Chief Justice was saying, now these complications are division. We only had, how many divisions did we have? We had civil and we had criminal. So how are you setting up all these other case divisions? Who is going to lead the division? Who said, no, Chief Justice, okay, let's try. And within no time, a full-fledged family court has been set up with so much work now, because now they do the succession and they do other family issues, divorce and everything else. I'm not going to talk anymore unless you take a cup of tea. So choose. Do you take and bring it here and do with their body? They can do it.
Yeah.
But a child, with this we have some, we can offer protection. So now I like what is going on. I hope I really didn't have much to do with the present law, but we had started the basis of this law when we outlawed anybody circumcising a child under 18. So that was the basis of the new law now. We were able to protect the children. And we had hoped we had put the circumcisers and what have you out of business. But it's a difficult thing. It's a social problem. It's difficult in the communities that practice it. In fact, much earlier on, I used to go to international meetings, and when I heard them say that FGM was, prevalent in Kenya, I would get so offended, and I would argue. I would say this is nonsense, and there's nothing like this in Kenya. I wasn't quite aware about the magnitude, nor was I aware of. I didn't belong to those communities that were doing it, so I was talking out of ignorance until this thing started being in the open, and now we began looking at the statistics. Okay. Oh, in fact, it was the other way around. The Children's Act, the Children's Law came before the women, yeah. Because the Children's Act, the Children's Law, we did it between 1993 to 1999. Children's Law with 1992 to 1996. Yeah. And I chaired that one. And that was a very, very interesting exercise. Similarly, we went around the whole country. And it was a very participatory exercise. We went to schools. We wrote. We got children to write out essays. The one when law. The children's law was a very penal law. We just were involved with them when they were in court. We were involved with them when they were not protected. But when the UN came out with the law, with the convention on the rights of the children, it's when we opened ourselves a bit more, and the government once more set up another task force to look at it. And that was also another very powerful task force. I can't remember, I think I have it somewhere, I have the report somewhere. I chaired it, and most of the people who were on it were people who understood and who were dealing with the issues of children. We had headmasters on it, we had everybody. Sons, the researchers were mainly university professors, students, and we did a good job of it. We did the first draft, we were thrown out with it. Parliament said no, it wasn't sufficiently representative of what the UN convention was. We went back with it again. It was more of we were still in the old mentality. We had to come out of it and make a much more protective and much more law than we had. So we came out with the present law. The only very specific things I remember about it, there's a lot that we came out with. But I remember things like we outlawed caning of children at school. We outlawed FGM. We outlawed. We brought in the issue of neglect, both parents, and we did not just limit it to parents alone, but anybody who was in charge of children, even the teachers and everything. We demanded more out of even the caregivers than it had before in the other law, in the laws that we had before. In other words, it was a much more human rights based law than what we had had before in the past. So that went on. It also took a long time. And remember, in fact, we had a big national conference which the president came and addressed, and we were sent back with the draft that we had done to go and redo again from that national thing. And that was from 1992 to 1996. Eventually we had the bill, and then it was passed without a problem.
What do you think is yet to be done? You have seen the accomplishments, but do you feel that something hasn't been accomplished despite all this?
The challenges also you can touch on.
The challenges. The country has put a lot of laws on paper. The implementation of those laws is still wanting. You can have a law, but if it's not implemented and complied with, we are wasting our time. Look at the affirmative. Affirmative action. The two-thirds provisions. In fact, I wrote a paper on it for cohesion when they were sitting before the former speaker took over. During the other one, I wrote a paper on it. And then, of course, when we took it to court, what we came out with, the so-called advisory of the Supreme Court. For me, I've read that document. I don't want to say anything, but I've read it upside down. I've read it from one page to another, and then read it the other way around, and come to the conclusion that the court needed to be very specific and say what the Constitution has said. The timelines that have been put by the Constitution as to when these things should be done, they should be done. The Constitution of Kenya took so much effort out of everybody, and all Kenyans spoke. We cannot keep on varying what they have spoken. The timelines that we have put on, the Parliament must make sure those timelines are done. You can't now begin progressive, what have you. No. That's not what Kenyan people wanted. They wanted things to be done, and they gave specific times for them to be done. I think we should go back to this and respect our Constitution and do what we are supposed to do in the Constitution. From the women point of view, we cannot continue at the level we are continuing. If we want these things and we want to take our place in the governance of this country, we'll have to take things a little bit more seriously. So that even at some point, this business of nominated will have to get out of the way. We are the only country, I think, I'm not sure, in the world which has got so many nominated women nominated in the world. Others fight for it, and they get on with it. At the level where we are now, women should do a bit more for themselves to get in this position and take advantage of what the laws are giving us. You know why I believe that women can still do it? Where I started from, when I came in first as a lawyer and qualified and came to this country, and about 2 of us, something. Look at the short time that has taken for women to go into the legal world, and they are now bypassing the men. So you can't tell me that there's something that is so difficult when it comes to governance, when it comes to these issues.
Actually, in the School of Law, University of Nairobi, the
Yes.
research we did last year,
Yeah.
the number of girls is 60%.
Can you
compared
imagine?
to
And we are talking, the person who is claiming that I was the first lawyer who was the only woman. I went out there, I was a role model. I don't know whether even that some of them thought who I was. It was everything. Call the lawyer, call the lawyer. A woman is giving birth, call the lawyer. It was birth control. I was there. It was. I was, and I didn't tire in most cases because I knew maybe we were very few of us, and the ones who came behind us also joined into it. We then put up the Women's Judges Association. We were out and active. You would even be talking to 6 different organizations in one weekend, plus your other work as a judge. And within no time, there are so many women lawyers that I look at and I said, I can't believe this. So similarly, this issue of the legislature, the what have you, I don't think we are putting in enough our own effort. And we have this thing that we keep talking about, but the violence. People are violent, even men are violent to each other. But we have to play in the same league with them. Find a way. If a male legislator surrounds himself with goons, do the same. Because you have been play football and you say, I want to play football differently. No. It's Gor Mahia and AFC. Go right ahead and play the way they play. That is the way that I'm looking at it. I think we are taking women, we are capable of doing a bit more of ourselves than the circumstance now. And there's another thing which I want to say, and I'm not saying it badly. I think we should be able, where we are now, we should be able to take a little bit more leadership in the communities. The good old days when we had a meeting, the man stands up and introduces everybody, and then stands up, and another one stands up and lays out what we are going to discuss, and then we are saying, okay, Mama so and so stand up and pray. That was the only part we had, isn't it? In these participatory forums, where things are being discussed, where the issues affecting us in communities, we should be able to take a bit more. And women are now educated enough to take part in them. We can't keep on leaving matters to the men, and then afterwards, when they don't go on their side the way we wanted, then we complain. And people say, when the meeting was called, were you there? You have now even things like the land boards. The law has even leaned to our side now that a man, Mzee, is not going to sell your land unless you are there and you have given authority. Do you know that women will still, knowing that a man cannot sell family land without giving them, she say, what you do, and if the law is leaning on your side and they are saying, go to that land board, by you going to the land board, you are saying, yes, I want my land sold. I'm taking away my own rights from that land. Why am I taking my right from that? Because Muse tells me that we are going to pay school fees for the child. So they don't go. The man sells it. What has he done with the money? He has paid rent, he has paid price for a woman who is coming to sit on top of you again. So the law, however much the law wants to do for us, we have issues. And then within no time, she's in front. She said, even up to now, they don't know that I've retired. So they will come looking for me. Judge, I say, no, I've since retired. No, Judge, I'm coming to tell you, Muse has done this. He went to the land board. He sold the land. I said, what happened? Yes, I had said we should sell the land. What were you selling land for? Muse alisema ataleta pesa nyumbani, then we shall now decide what to do with it. Or mtoto alikuwa anaenda university, tukasema hiyo. So what did he do? Alipotea, mama hajaona yeye. Pesa imeenda. the purpose of you being told to go there and give the consent is so that you should know what the proceeds from the sale of the land is going to do. So we could still do a little bit more. Our communities, I think we should sensitize our women a little bit more. Yeah. But even the men, not only the women. A man must know that you can't just sell when he wants. Family property is family property. Those are I think some of the challenges. My challenge is just what the legislature and parliament thinks that is doing when it comes to this affirmative action, 2/3, whatever. But I'll tell you something interesting. We went to Migori on this 2/3 thing. It's a bit complicated also. We went to Migori. Migori, there are New Year's. Kanyamkago, is it Kanyamkago area? There are Maragolians who went there years ago, and my father used to have a bus taking them there. That's why I know about that area very well. There are couriers, then there are laws. So when you tell them that 2/3, oh no, it's now the law of the majority tribe, they don't call it tribe, the majority people. When you are telling them that, it's so difficult to know who has been employed, if this is the Luo, if this is the Luhya, if this is the what we don't even specify what levels of employment are we talking about. So the couriers will tell you, the Luos will tell you that this is our land, this is where we work. Yeah, so we are the ones to take this. We are the ones to be the governors. We are the ones to be the what. We are the ones to be the what. So where does it leave the courier and leave the Maragol who went there? He can be employed as a sweeper, but they will still count number one. You know what I mean? We are employed for. So there are still many things that we need to do. I was a bit disturbed when we let the implementation of the commission, of the Constitution Commission go home before they complete what they should have done. But then that's what the law had said. But maybe we could have amended the law to try and get them to stay a little bit longer to see that the Constitution, all these little problems we are having, the Constitution we have gone over them. But we didn't. We sent them home. So issues that had not been dealt with, the constitutional issues that had been dealt with, they haven't been dealt with. Now we have problems and fighting ourselves, each other, without any solution to it. What has bothered me a little bit now? The new law in respect of property. What do we say? Half-half upon divorce.
Yes.
I am a little bit bothered, but other people have got other this. As we were just talking, because the whole purpose when we were talking about half-half in those days was because men were the head of families, and most men were the ones who were earning money. The women didn't. A woman was left in picking coffee in Moranga and taking it to the factory in the husband's number. You know, they used to have a number? And that's what you got from the factory. So we were looking at that situation where she lived at home. The husband was the one who worked in the city hall as a driver or cleaner, but he was the employed person. Mama was doing the bigger part at home, doing the coffee, doing everything so that her kids could go to school. Mr. Husband would only go there because he's the owner of the number. In other words, the membership of the whatever that it used to be called a number up to that. He would go and collect the check at the end of it. Okay? But Mama had the security of living on the family land. Where? It was not usual for a man to come from after you have been to City Hall as a driver for 30 years to go home and tell an old woman that to get out of this land. People would say, are you joking? She had the security of the people around her and everything. So she was, whatever it is, you could go there and drink yourself silly, or go to the market and read the newspaper the whole day, but still come home and ask for food, but mama is in her home. Things have changed. They said the social is now changing. Number one, women are now taking on much bigger roles. Economically, there are quite a number of women who are now even much better off than the men they're living with. Okay? My worry is this. We are talking about half-half, and I'm asking these girls, I'm saying, you are married to who? He said, yeah, I'm married. He loved to work and what. He was working for NGO, he left. So you are the one now who is in solid employment. Yes. And you are the one now who is struggling to buy the house. Yes. And what is he doing himself? He said, oh, he held a job some 4 or 5 years ago, and now he doesn't have a job. The law previously was contribution. In other words, financial contribution. What did you put into this? In those days, in the courts, we would do anything to quantify a woman's contribution. I even, there was a time even I said breastfeeding. I even posted the breastfeeding. I said the hours she finishes on breastfeeding, and maybe when you are in the office reading a newspaper, what you are telling me that is nothing? So half-half was a very attractive thing, because the women were the ones who were not employed, not making much money, and they were sitting at home with the children. You are now saying half-half. When the man is the one who has not been doing anything much, when he gets his half, he walks through that door and leaves you behind with the children. What are the courts going to do? Are they now going to say you will get half-half, and you, man, before you leave, we will have found out how the kids are going to be raised before you are given your share? In other words, women are becoming economically much more empowered than the men. Is going to end up women investing for men who will walk off and never look back. As a woman, you can't look back. You can't walk off and leave a children behind. Except this one in Kisumu, whom I saw the other day. She had left the husband with 5 children.
Yeah.
Butere, and abandoned her 5 children. That's the first one I heard about, by the way. The most time, women will hang on their children. So as to whether this half-half thing is going to be all right without the contribution aspect of it, which we used to have, is going a little bit difficult. We might need regulations as to what do we mean by half-half, and what are the things that the judge must be able to look at before you can say each couple can walk out with half-half. Properly, customs and what the Constitution says. Both my son and my daughters are entitled to property. There's nothing called clan land anymore. Okay. By the way, I fought hard. I fought very hard for this. But now looking at it, and I say that, okay, one of my daughters is married to a Kikuyu who comes from Nyeri. The other one is married to a Turkana from Turkana. Another one is married to a fellow from Nandi. And then I have my 3 sons, and I have my piece of land at home. So when I go, the Turkana will come with her Turkana husband. This is what our law is now. Yeah. The one from Nyeri, the Kikuyu will come with theirs, the Nandi will come with theirs. And they are all coming to my little clan and my village in Luhya land, or wherever it is. And everybody wants now to set up a base. And the way we look at society, Is this really going to work at some point? When my Turkana son-in-law now wants to sell, and has convinced my daughter that they can sell the plant. When we're asking judges and magistrates and other people that do it according to our traditions and customs, what are we exactly asking them? Especially in family matters and in inheritance matters.
So, I have one question for you, Lady Justice. Now that you've been in the legal field and fighting for the women's rights and movements within the judiciary, first of all, I would want to ask you, for example, in relation to the law and our culture that we still have. For example, you've recently, I think some few years ago, there was a case in Garissa, a defilement case, which had been settled through out of court, whatever, and but it raised a lot of eyebrows, and women rights actual movements started commenting on it so much, and the magistrate there had allowed, the Kathy had allowed the out of court settlements. And so do you think still the judiciary has a lot to do in trying to actually mainstream the women's rights and the atrocities that are faced by women? Though we have seen that, as you've talked to us, you have come a long way and actually you have pushed so many things, but I still think maybe you can address us whether there are still instances when...
Do you know,
Yeah.
until last year, I was chairing a committee that was implementing the new Sexual Offences Act. I was chairing the committee that was implementing the Sexual Offences Act, and that I was appointed in 2009. Okay? In fact, let's just say we have been all over the place in the country trying to tell people what the Sexual Offences Act, what is an offense. And we have repeatedly said this. It is a crime. Mediation and what have you has no business whatsoever with Sexual Offences Act. In particular, defilement of both boys and girls, there is nothing like that. But that's where our traditions and our customs cannot part ways that easily. I remember going to a barasa in Kisi, and there was a chief that just had nothing, but they were just doing this. Oh, you did so and such child. We are going to say you are going to pay 4 cows. Then it is also made worse by the elders, the authority that we have now given to the elders. Trust me, I did the elders committee from 2009 to 2010. I chaired the elders committee. We were trying to find out how are we going to get these elders involved in things, because they were everywhere. Unregistered, they were everywhere. They are not only settled, they settle all these things either through their whether it is in Jurinjeke or whether it is all these other tribal things. They had no perimeters for they were everywhere. You are even seen to the point where we are now in Northeastern, and now they are saying, you are going to stand for elections. You are not going to do this. Strictly speaking, you cannot do that. People have a free will. That's what democracy is all about. People have free will to decide what they want to do. But you can't take on a clan, and that mentality is still so strong that we as elders in this clan can even as much as control that. That is where they were coming from when they were trying to deal with sexual offenses in the community. They have no right whatsoever. Sexual offense is an offense. It must be court to court, and it must be heard. And that is one of the law that has got the highest prescribed sentences. Sometimes people say, I wish I was sentenced to die than be told to go to court for 30, to prison for 30 years or life imprisonment. They have no business to be in it. We are going out there, people are saying it, there has to be more sensitization done. It's not easy to sensitize Kenyans. Kenyans are very difficult people. You can sensitize until you cry. You will go and you'll talk and talk and talk, and when you leave, they're doing exactly what you said you should not do. They have no business getting involved. Sexual offenses is a crime. Nobody can work. In fact, it's so infuriating that anybody can sit there and say because a 3-year-old has been defiled. And then they try to keep excuse. That woman was defiled because she was dressed up in funny clothes. She was walking on the road at 7. So I always ask this man, I say, what about the 2-year-old whom you defiled? Is that one dressed in a funny way or walking on the road at 6? Deal with a crime as a crime. Don't give any excuses. So all those cases which they are trying to settle in the villages, that is wrong and it's against the law. They have no business doing it at all. But as I said, there were many, many of them that as we went around with this, trying to implement the Sexual Offences Act, that we were trying to deal with, to say, you can't do this. This is an offense. You can't do this.
Okay.
But those are some of the problems we have
Yeah.
into our own law.
Yeah.
But now, it's not the same. With the new constitution,
Yeah.
any statute, any instrument that is we ratify, we put our signature on, it automatically becomes our law.
Yeah.
Um,
And now, if you read,
when did we fight them all now?
it was around 1958 to 63. Yeah.
Kenyans have been sitting in our comfort zone.
Yeah.
Look at all the other African countries around us, and I'm not saying anything much. These people are coming from a situation of war, from a situation and trying to reconstruct their communities and their nations completely from the word go. So they go for the best practices. You see what I mean? Take, for instance, Rwanda, as you say. South Africa should have been better than what is happening now in South Africa. The other day, I don't know whether you saw this video that was going around, where Malema, that Malema and everybody, they can't even let the speaker control the parliament. Zuma cannot speak. We haven't gotten there, and thank God we never get there. But what I'm trying to say is this: we have tended to be a little bit more comfortable because we never fought civil wars in the country. We fought the white man, he went, and we began our own lives. Uganda has fought a civil war. So when they now began doing their laws and listening to things and coming back, they were much more receptive to these things, to the human rights instruments than we were, because we never. Same thing with Uganda. But after having said that, we've never, as I said, we have never come out of a situation of civil war. We always go up to almost, but we never get there. We are smarter than that. Kenyans are very smart. We don't go down that road. We reach there and then we come back and we say we are a bit more. We fought a war to get the white man on. We're not going to fight ourselves to that level. We know the other problems we have had. But as a country, we've done well. You know what, young man? We are doing well. The country is doing well. But that comes with a lot of challenges. And we have to be able to work hard. Our problem is just that we take on these conventions and then something else comes. Like, even if we're trying to do something else, then like the drought comes, we forget and we run with the drought first. Then we come back to go and pick it up. We are doing well. Even human rights, we've done fairly well. When people used to be thrown into prison for nothing, it is no longer, does it happen? That parliament will make so much noise before we throw people into parliament, into prison. Detain people without a court order. That is no longer happening. So we are doing well. The fact that even our courts now are so busy, I think it's a good sign of democracy. Like now, when the court now tells the election people that another 3 days, and they're saying, look, we have programs we have to do. It's not a bad thing. They still obey the law. So democracy, we are getting on in one way or the other. It's nice to know that you can go to court, you can get an order, and you can stop even IBs or whatever it is from proceeding until this and this has been done. Umutata can walk into that court. You see the one who is stopping the... What are some... Umutata is in court with what now? Yeah, Umutata said people should be given more time.
The extension
Yeah,
of
the extension of the IBC deadline for registration.
So maybe...
That is a civil man from there on the street.
Yes.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, it's a milestone.
It's a milestone. So we will get there. It will take a bit of time, but we will get there.
Now really justice, maybe...
For ICJ, on the political and what are the situation and development, from just pre-independence up to the constitution. I think if you look at the ICJ publication, you will see that paper. Just go and put it out. And I was looking at how dynamic the women's movement were in those days. And up to somehow we have lost it, especially when the women organizations became partisan. And I must say that came in at the time when is it Sephora Ketonyi? Came in as she's my friend, by the way. She's a very good friend of mine. When she came in as a chairperson of my Endeleo, okay, then we joined KANU, isn't it?
Yeah.
We joined KANU, and what else did we do? The National Council of Women now lost its, although they tried, they were being charged. A person like Wangari came in, and there was a confusion between politics and what have you. And then the women movement began going upwards. The day women organizations became partisan, that was the death of the women movement per se. Something happened, and we lost it. We lost it. Do women now want to be put into cages like they were? I don't know. What should be done? Rethink our position. Do we still want to? But just before I say that, you have come in. I don't know whether women would be able to disentangle themselves from the different political parties they belong to now to come into a movement just as women. But if we found a way of having to work together as women despite our different political ideologies, that would help. But are we able to? We will have to find a way of having to work as women once more. Right now, women will now know that men can't just make us fight because I am KANU, I am whatever, I am ODM, whatever. I look at like the developed countries. Despite they are Republicans, they are Democrats, there's women movements which push issues as women for the benefit of women, not the benefit of men. We will get there. But after we have settled a little bit in this new found democratic space of many parties and what have you, I believe it will still come. Women will still have to, they will come. And we'll have, when we were together, we had Mandela and we were fighting for water. You know what I mean? Mandela was fighting for water. Mandela was fighting for things that affected us women. But then that now went away, and